In three, two, one. Hi, guys, and welcome down to this featured podcast with one of the best No Limits creators that I have ever had the pleasure of working with. It's Wolf Raging 95, ladies and gentlemen. He's joined us here on Christmas Eve for part one of this podcast on his channel. So I want to say a massive thank you to everyone on his channel for supporting him and for helping us as well. If you've come over from his channel at any point during the collaborations that we've done, a massive thank you, and we love you guys so much. So now that's out of the way, part two will be on our channel, which is over at CoasterGen. There will be a link after this video has gone live, and there should be a link in the description below. So I'm just really excited for this podcast. I've known Tim for over about 6 years. My name is Luke Holsworth. I am from CoasterGen. I run the Facebook page at CoasterGen. And we've been working with Tim now for the last 5 months. And our YouTube channel itself is now up to, at this time of recording, which is the 18th of December, we are 61 subscribers strong. So thank you guys if you're listening. You know, if you've subscribed. If you haven't, make sure you do go over, check it out. We've got some Planet Coaster videos coming up soon. All that stuff. But for now, here is the man of the hour. It's Tim. It's Wolf Raging 95 for the first time ever on YouTube. Here is his voice. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing okay.
There he is. There he is. Man of the hour.
How are you doing?
I'm good. So congratulations on smashing 1,000 subscribers. So that's incredible. To just basically do all No Limits on your channel, bar a few Six Flags videos, right?
Right, yeah, there's only a couple from like when I first made the channel, 2 from X-Flight Station. That is all.
Yeah, and the rest is just No Limits. I mean, yep. if we had to get 1,000 people and line them up for a coaster, they would, you know, it would fill an hour of ERT on any ride. The amount of people who are subscribed to your YouTube channel, who've watched you create and, you know, showcase your talents with No Limits, even starting from No Limits 1, but now transitioning into No Limits 2, man, you have blown everyone away with your stuff, hitting the roundup time after time after time, going the extra mile, and now it just seems like your content just keeps improving and improving. So let's go back to the start of when you started out. How did it all begin?
Well, it did start with No Limits 1. There's only one video on this channel that you'll see from No Limits 1, and it's when Six Flags Great America was about to announce Viper going backward. So I got a video out just around the time, or just before they announced it. That's the only No Limits 1 video. And then after that video, there were two videos of from X-Flight Station. After that, there is nothing else. It's all No Limits 2 from there. It all started with No Limits 1 though, and I had an old channel, and it didn't really do that well with No Limits, but I ended up deleting that one, and I made Wolf Raging 95 on my birthday of 2013. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's the day, and I made that, and I wasn't ever expecting to make it to 1,000 subscribers, but over the course of time I have, and I want to thank everybody for that. All the support, and I will continue to do the best that I can to give you quality coasters, and it's been a lot of fun, and I hope that I can continue to do well and keep pleasing my viewers, and I'm very appreciative for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of work that goes in. I mean, you had a week where we was doing collabs, and I think you got, was it 3 coasters out in 1 week, or was it more than that? Was it 4? I can't remember now.
It was like 3 or 4 coasters that week.
That was insane. I'd wake up, I'd go, because we talk all the time, and I've known you for about 6 years, right?
Right.
So you are in the US, I'm in the UK, if you guys didn't know that. And we talk daily. So he would send me a screenshot of what he's currently working on, and I'd receive it about 7 a.m. my time. He'd be still up at like 3 o'clock in the morning sending me screenshots. I've made a new one. Here's a new one. There's a new one. I was like, you've made 3 rides in 1 week. It takes people 7 months to make a ride usually. It's like, yeah. And it takes parks 4 years to come up with a design. And you're just like, yeah. Wing coaster, B&M sit down, Mac Megalite. It's just bam, 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 done. Channel.
Yeah, I
Crazy.
guess it's just all with ideas. With my layouts, people always ask me, like, what exactly do you do? How do you make rides so quickly? Well, it usually just starts with like a vision of what I kind of want, and I kind of just go with what I envision in my head as I'm going along. And usually I have a rough idea of a layout I want, but sometimes I am tweaking it just a little bit. Just recently, like with Adrenaline, I created a small box
What a
out of
ride.
support beams.
I love that ride.
Adrenaline.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you
Thank
asked
you.
us to put the scenery in for that, well, when you asked me, I was like, I've got to ride this. And as soon as I got on it on my screen, because I only seen it on Discord up to that, damn,
Yeah, that
it
that
blew me
ride.
away. That
There's
that hauls ass. That ride. That is a
yes.
quick into
It's a
minute. It's rapid.
very quick, and that was my goal with that ride, was to make a small box and see what I can do. My idea was force and airtime, and I felt like I was able to do that, and I didn't have too many inversions.
No,
I think my favorite element on that ride is the very quick stall behind the drop.
yeah.
I knew, again, with Envision, I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. The minute that I started working on that drop, I realized I had some space behind there. So I was like, okay, I can fit a stall in over there. And the ride I wanted to keep it as compact and as low to the ground as possible, but still kind of give it my own feel.
See, what I liked about it was the pacing. You had elements of it where it was just whip, 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 bang inversion, and then you had little bits in between where it was like still airtime moments. You could see the airtime, like you could feel the airtime on the simulation as well. And when you looked at it from the editor point of view on No Limits, you could really see the airtime, and that transfer over to the other side of the ride towards the back end of the station. That
Yes.
after that first little break of whipping around everywhere, you just float into this crazy section of like just crazy S bends and all these turns and the angles as well, really quick into the angles, and it really complemented every element in that ride, complemented each other, and it looked like a professional build. It looked like it was going to get built. I mean, I know a lot of people have said that to you, right?
Oh, yeah. I hear that from quite a few people.
That it looked like a proper prototype for an Intamin coaster, and that, when you start getting comments like that, you're onto something, and you are talented at this simulation, at this software. It's incredible. People say it's a game, people say it's software, but just for this benefit of this podcast, I'm just going to call it simulation or software. I'm not going to call it a game, just because I feel like there's a lot more that goes into it than just certain like Planet Coaster, for example. You can build a great ride, but you can't build a No Limits ride in Planet Coaster. It's impossible, basically. So
Yes.
to call No Limits a game is a bit of an insult to the devs. So I would say it's software. It definitely is a simulation software. So we'll go with that one. So sorry if anyone's offended. Drop down a comment below if you are, and we'll change it up for the next podcast. But simulation software, it's called No Limits Simulation. So there. I've
Yeah.
said that. I've said that. That's out of the way now. But you are really talented in what you do and what you show to people on your channel. I mean, I watch you build live, and if people could see that, man, they would be like, "This guy's just designed a ride in like 2 minutes. It's amazing."
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's
Let
sometimes
me
it can be a
guess.
bit of a challenge.
Let me guess. You wanted to do this, right? When from first going on your first roller coaster, you was like, "I want to design these things."
Yes. That
Yeah.
that is something that I've always wanted to do. Um, so getting to do it even in No Limits, it's a lot of fun. And even though sometimes these designs may not even really come to life, it's still nice to get a good idea of what they're going to be. That's how great No Limits 2 is. Even if you didn't want to design roller coasters for a living, you still could do it in No Limits and get a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like.
Well, it's
Uh,
the feedback, right? The feedback you get from the community. They come back with criticism, and sometimes it's just amazing feedback.
yes. Yeah. Some
And that's
criticism.
And
is really good.
there's something about dropping the video and having people ride the ride. You kind of get a sense, once you press upload and it's done, and you make it public, there's a sense of achievement, and I think that comes a lot with the amount of hours and hard work you put in after you've done the layout, because it only takes you about an hour to do a layout. But after it, when you're trying to tweak everything, get it perfect bankings, perfect G-force, perfect airtime, after you've done all that, and then you go bam, release, it's public, and you just sit back and go, well, that's another one done. What's
Yes,
next?
that's exactly what it feels like. And even though it doesn't take me long to design them, it's just because I put a lot of time into the track work, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress it enough. I use the depump tool a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, that's where usually a lot of the smoothness comes from. I know some sections might be a little bit rough, but maybe it's just because the depumper didn't take care of it as much as it probably could have. I probably could have worked on it a bit more. But even though I don't take a lot of time, it doesn't take me long to design. I do put everything that I can into each layout, into making each one feel enjoyable, realistic. I do what I can, and it was nice to really see Adrenaline do as well as it did, because that I felt like I did a lot that I wanted to do. And even though you have that floater hill before the quick paced turn left and turn right into that other last inversion,
Yeah.
it was a nice little breather before going back into full throttle, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Uh,
It was great.
yeah, I know that you kind of helped me with that a bit. With that, yeah, I know you were saying it. I know we were talking at first where I felt like it was a little bit where it kind of lost its pace, but the ride was still going at least 30 miles per hour over that last hill before
Yeah, and you don't
that
see
last
that until
inversion.
you get into the editor and you really strip it down. Like you put the speed comb on it and you see how fast it's traveling through that section, and you think, like, okay, what experience have I? See, I know a lot of your designs come from experiences you've had with rides, like you've ridden Goliath a lot, you've ridden X Flight a lot. You Six Flags, Great America, right? Is that the one near you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's an I can tell when you've been to a park and you slap no limits on, because everything is more forceful, everything is quicker, everything is more airtime. It's it's a pleasure to see, because you can just tell it's like quicker. Okay, he's literally just ridden a coaster.
You can tell when I've been on a ride because everything, like you said, is more forceful, pretty quick. Just kind of, I guess, just kind of reminds you of what these rides could do and what they could feel like. So it just kind of gives you a sense of feeling of what these rides can do, what they're like, and having a real life ride. And then maybe you come home from your local theme park and your home park, and you can see, and you kind of get reminded what those rides feel like, and what you remember what you felt on maybe your last ride on a certain coaster, and you're like, okay,
Because you
I
forget,
want to
right?
kind of,
You
yeah,
forget.
you kind of forget, even though you can go to YouTube and
Yeah.
watch a POV of a certain ride, you don't quite get that feeling still in person that you would in a video. So it's nice to kind of be reminded of what that feels like. So when the time comes, you can almost mimic that same exact feeling, but in your own ride.
But sometimes you get the opposite effect. I remember going back to when we started designing Icon, and I was using you to help me with some of the track work, like making it more whippy, making it more forceful. And we were looking back at the G-force column at the time, and it wasn't representing what the ride's like in real life.
Uh huh.
It was saying it was like 5-6 Gs into a pull out on one of the airtime hill, the bunny hop, after the second inversion of the first launch. It was
Yeah.
saying, which I haven't carried on with it for a simple reason, is that I need to ride it a few more times, because I wasn't getting the representation of the ride in No Limits. I was getting a less forceful after we depumped a lot and after we worked on the track work a lot. It didn't look like it felt, and it wasn't true. So that's why I've stopped that. And we did post a lot of screenshots on our Facebook and on No Limits and saying, look, it's coming soon, but it will happen. It'll just happen after I ride Icon again in February. So, but just going back to the point, when you design a ride off feelings of a ride, because you've done a few recreations, like you've done Goliath, haven't you?
I've done Goliath at least 2 or 3 times. I have a
Hmm.
third recreation, and that's still kind of in the works for Project Great America that I have not shown yet. So
Mm-hmm.
if you've watched the second video and you feel something still isn't right, it's probably been re it's probably been worked on and ironed out in the third attempt of the recreation. It's just waiting out for that RMC update whenever that it comes. That's probably when
Hope you're
I'll
listening,
probably
No Limits devs.
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, when we get the RMC update, whenever that is, I can show off third that third recreation, and hopefully that's a lot closer than the other two, which I feel like it is because we did use the overlay from when Six Flags Great America announced Goliath, and they had when they were using the village board meeting, they had like an overlay of what it was going to look from a top view, and got that down to scale so that way I can get almost an exact replica of the ride.
I mean, I remember the first version that you sent to me, and that was insane in itself. A lot of people gave criticism on that one.
Yeah,
The second one, man, you nailed it.
yeah, that one
You,
was a
yeah,
lot closer.
yeah, you hit out the park with that one. I've not been to Six Flags Great America, but you FaceTimed me the other day when you was there, holiday in the park, and you showed me Goliath, and that thing looks huge.
Yes,
It
it,
looks
it's.
massive.
I think a lot of that has to do with the area that it's in.
Hmm.
It's a small area. When Iron Wolf was there, and before Iron Wolf, Z Force was there. It's a very small and very narrow, compact area. So Goliath is just massive. So you can really see it before you even get when you're still trying to get around to it. When you're still by the go karts or by Little Dipper, you can see Goliath on the way too. It's definitely a massive structure that you can see very easily, and it's a good name for the coaster, even though we have quite a few Goliaths. This one, I think, lives true to the name, even though it's not the tallest coaster in the world, but it's definitely a good ride.
It just looks like a mean structure. It looks intimidating. It's a bit
Very.
like Oblivion at Alton Towers. There's nothing much to it. It's just a drop and an overbank. But man, when you're looking up at that ride and the width of the track and the width of the train, it really gets you. You're like, okay, this thing is huge, and
Yeah.
this is plummeting to the ground. I mean, John Wilder did a killer job on that ride just to intimidate people before they even got anywhere near the seats.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is what they were going for with Goliath. Was like, okay, you're gonna know that, you know, this is a beast, and you got to be ready for this.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely
that's
a
what it
good
looks like
ride.
to me. Yeah, it looked crazy. It looked awesome.
Definitely. Yes, the layout is short, but the ride it doesn't let up.
Hmm.
From the drop to the brakes, it's to
Is
the
that what
final
you
brake run.
found? Is that what you found most difficult about recreating it? Was getting the pacing?
Yeah, trying to get the pace right. I believe I had to use a custom friction as well to get
Hmm.
to that 72 mile per hour mark because I think I was hitting at least 70, and it just needed to be somewhat fixed with the friction. I think the hardest part was trying to get the twist and shout to work properly with the laterals and the actual forces because of how tight that element actually is. Trying to get it right in No Limits was rather difficult, but it's getting there. It's a lot better than it was. I've been working on the forces and shaping, but yeah, pacing can be a bit tricky with that ride because the forces are so intense, at least laterally.
Hmm. Yeah.
I've been on Goliath plenty of times, so after you ride a coaster so many times, you start looking for other things in a ride that maybe you didn't notice before, such as forces, laterals, whatever,
Yeah.
or what have you with that. So when you find those, you start to realize what you start looking for the things. So in the recreation, I tried to make sure that I had those laterals or like that airtime moment or the where you're going through the Raven turn and you have some moments of airtime, even going like not airtime, but out your seat for a few seconds before being pushed back down through the
Mm.
Raven turn.
Yeah.
And the 0G stall is just so much fun to watch, either being on or off ride. It's really an enjoyable element.
Mm. It does. It looks cool. All right, so we just touched on forces briefly there. So, like, when you've ridden a coaster and you get onto No Limits, and let's say you've got a section where it goes left and right dead quick, but you want it to stay dead quick and you don't want to depump it too much. Do you go about that where you just leave it on depumped, or do you try and depump it, get it as smooth as it can with the track work, and then try and make a realistic feeling afterwards? Because a lot of your rides portray actual track work elements of manufacturers. So you're nailing Intamin, you're nailing Mac recently, which we'll touch on in a minute, and you know it B&M. I don't think I've seen a content creator on No Limits nail B&M's so consistent as much as you do throughout all of your No Limits projects with B&M. So are you trying to recreate the realistic feelings of the ride and trying not to depump areas so much on the coasters that you design?
That is exactly what I try to do. I try to be realistic, as I said before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I try to match each manufacturer to what they do. Sometimes I'll maybe add my own twist in there, only if it feels like it'll still be okay with something that that manufacturer would pull off. Uh, as you mentioned just recently with the Mac Hyper
Mm-hmm.
that I'm working on, that you mentioned Mac. So there is a Mac Hyper that I'm working on called Rapids Rampage, and
Yeah.
I did post that just a few days ago on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
posting your first look at Grand Rapids Adventure, the park that I'm working on for the chain that we have created with myself, you, and a few other users,
Mm-hmm.
no limits users at that, that have created Amusement Americana.
Yep.
And the
I am
first
UK
rapid,
branch. I am UK branch. I am the only park in the UK. Amusement
uh,
Americana. Yeah,
yeah,
boy.
that is going to be awesome. That is a project that you could look forward to not only on my channel, but Luke's as well, Coaster Gen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there's a few other ones of us too that we are all working on that you will most likely start hearing from with the parks. Now, the other day, I just recently posted my first picture of Rapids Rampage of the Mac Hyper that I'm working on. The height is 239 feet. The length is 5,600 feet long. Reaches a top speed of 80 miles per hour, and it will have 3 inversions. That I did not show in the one screenshot that I posted. But I'm hoping soon enough that I can get a video out for that, hopefully by Christmas, like later in today, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
Yeah, I mean, I've ridden this thing, guys, and honestly, if you thought adrenaline was good, wait till you see this thing. This thing is incredible. I can't wait for you guys to see this. Honestly, it's an incredible Mac coaster, Mac Hyper, and there's not that many around on YouTube, right? For No Limits.
I
I,
don't
I
think there is, no.
I've not ever, to my knowledge, I can't remember seeing one, to be honest.
There's only a select few. I want to say
Yeah,
Projection has one, and there's probably a few others that I'm just not thinking of at the moment right now. But they're not. I don't think they're too common. No.
I don't know why that is, because they are incredible. Once you get the layout nailed, woof,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
They look. They're
beast.
really good looking. They're really appealing to the eye, even
Yeah,
in No
they're dead
Limits.
sleek, aren't they? They're dead clean. They're really clean. That's what I like about Mac rides. They're dead clean.
Yeah,
Everything's
yeah.
clean. Clean lines, clean, you know, clean trains, and there's nothing that sticks out like a sore thumb. It's just really
It all looks.
nice. Yeah, it all
Yeah,
looks sleek.
it
Looks
all
awesome.
goes together
Yeah,
very well.
really well. Whereas other
Yeah,
ride manufacturers I've discovered, like, they have to add elements to make it feel like that. Like, they have to have a clean station or a clean entrance to the brake run, or like a drop down into a launch. Whereas Mac coasters just ride out the station and go. Like, it's there's something about Mac coasters that are just, they're out of this world. They're awesome. I've only ridden Icon, so I can only speak from my experience with that. But if Helix
Yeah.
is anything to go by what people are saying, I cannot wait to ride that beast. And I just climbing that lift hill on your coaster. I just imagine the feeling you get with the lap bars over you, and as soon as you hit that first drop, man.
Yeah.
Whew,
The-
it'd be hands up all the way around because it is a crazy ride. But
yes,
yeah,
it's gonna be awesome. I think it's gonna be worth it. I think it's a very solid first coaster in the park. Uh, I don't think it's gonna just. I don't. I think it's gonna be very well good for my channel, and I think it's gonna be a good way to introduce this new park for this brand new chain that we're just starting. That's for No Limits. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. There's not many YouTubers, No Limits users, I should say, No Limit users that actually have started a brand new chain for No Limits and decided to create a few different parks. I don't think there's many of them that have. So this is actually going to be a fun way to hopefully get something started in No Limits, and maybe we could start a trend with other users that,
that would be cool. I mean, that's
yeah,
the overall goal, isn't it? To do something new, to do something different, and to stand
yeah,
out. It's a great way of showcasing what we can do with a certain set of rules. So there are rules applied to these parks. We can only have certain manufacturers doing certain ride types. There's a certain box we have to stick to. It's it's quite restrictive in a way, but it brings out a side of the creative mind that you don't normally get to, uh, you know, discover when you're just starting with Flatland and you're just looking at a grid from the top view and you're like, right, build a station. There's your first lift hill. Right, where do I go from here? With this, you have to think about, where am I putting this ride? Where am I putting that ride? How am I doing this fence? Where am I doing that fence? Is this path right for that path? Is that joining up with the station? Is it not? Does it look good from the entrance? No. Okay, I have to move it. So, and I know you've done that a lot recently, right? You've tweaked
yes,
things up.
especially with this park. I've been working very hard, some late nights, as we've mentioned before, where I'm,
Go to sleep.
yeah, go to sleep. But sometimes it's hard to when you have a little extra time and you kind of lose track of time. Honestly, like
Hmm.
it'll be like maybe 11:30 at night one night, and you're like, well, just for a little while, and you look at the clock and it says like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and we're like, oh, I guess I better go to sleep because it's kind of late. Yeah, I think the park is coming along well. There's going to be some nice views of the coaster with the path that I have. I provide some nice views in the park. It's going to be fun, and there's definitely more coming. Probably sooner than I think most people are expecting for a second coaster. Uh, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil anything, but it's going to be. I think my second coaster is going to be very fun. I will say that it provides a almost like a new type of thrill, and it's not something that we've quite seen before. Like we've seen a couple of them from other No Limits users, but maybe not of this type of idea. So I think this will be fun to kind of get out when the time comes. And I will say that this second coaster also has a really nice look to it from any part of the pathway that I have placed down now. It looks really good in the park skyline.
Yeah, I mean, what ride you're talking about, I won't disclose any information on it at the moment, but it is definitely unique. Uh, it touches on elements that you don't really get with any other experience. I mean, I read it for the first time on my computer. So you sent me the package last night, and I read it for the first time. I was like, "What the?" I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on. It was amazing. It was so smooth, but it was amazing, and I can't wait. I
Yes,
got another one. I can't wait for you guys to see. Right,
it's
guys. Okay, so that is going to be the end of part one. Part two is going to be on my channel, on CoasterGen. There's going to be a link after this video finishes and a link in the description. Make sure you go down below. Make sure you like this video and share it around. Get it around everywhere you can. All the groups, everything. If you've got a page based on roller coasters or theme parks or No Limits, share it around. Let's get this podcast out there. Let's try and get more interaction with the community going on.
Of course,
So,
don't forget to subscribe as well.
And don't forget to subscribe. That is a very important part. Tim, thanks for saying that. Yeah.
No problem.
So we'll see you over. We'll see you over on Coaster Gen. All right.